Today we're going to be taking a look at Google and specifically Google Forms and how we can use that in our online education. So if you log into your Google account, up in the upper right hand corner you'll notice this 9 square box that when you hover over it says Google Apps. And if we click on it, it has access to all of the different apps that Google has for us. So right here is the Google Classroom, which is where you can go to for your classroom settings. And there's some other ones on here. So Docs is basically Word online, Sheets is our Excel, Slides is PowerPoint, the calendar feature. And if you scroll down, there should be a Google Forms icon. If it's not located here, there's two ways of getting it. You can come down to the bottom here and click on the More from G Suite Marketplace, and you can search for Google Forms. Or the other thing you can do is just come right into the search bar here and type in Google Forms, and it'll pop up right away. So here I am in Google Forms, and if I'm doing it for my class, I'm going to go to the personal, go to Google Forms. And that's going to pull up this page here. And so at the top, you can see this is starting a new one, and there's different forms that are already done. So like there's pre-made exit tickets, pre-made assessments that if you want to do, course eval. This is good for the college courses at the end of the semester. There's also the blank quiz or even just a worksheet. Or you could just start completely from scratch and do a blank. You can see that I've done a whole bunch already that I've used. So let's just take a look at the exit ticket to start, because that's a pretty common one that's easy to be used. So when we pull that up, it'll load in here. And so you can see it says the title, it's an exit ticket, and before you leave class today, please answer the following questions. So the student, anytime we want it to be a required that they have to answer it, it'll put a little asterisk here, and the student will not be able to submit it until they have answered all of the asterisk questions. So obviously we want their names so we can give them credit for doing the exit ticket. This second one here, the email, because all of our students' emails, we already have them, I don't really need that. So that's one that I typically will get rid of. So if I click on, there's these little 6 buttons at the top, it'll bring open the question, and here's where we can kind of edit things. So I really don't want this question. It doesn't really help me. So I'm going to come down here and just hit delete. That gets rid of the question. Right? So our second question here says, what is one important thing you learned in class today? Notice that this one does not have an asterisk with it. It's not required. But I want to make sure that my students actually do answer this question so I know that they were paying attention and they learned something. So again, if I click on it, I can come down here and there's this little slider that says required. For right now it's turned off. If I turn it on, now when I click off the question, it puts the little asterisk there, letting me know that, hey, they have to answer this question. Now, there are different types of questions you can throw in here. So all the ones that they have pre-standard, you'll notice are all paragraph or short answer questions. They type out however long they need to answer the question. There's no limit. If you click on where it says paragraph, you can see all the different types of questions that can be asked. So if you want to give them a multiple choice question, you would click on multiple choice. Check boxes is which of the following, blah, 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 and you just answer as many as you need. A drop down is nice if you want to preload answers, where you give them the drop down choice. File upload, you can upload a file, or when they click on that thing, it'll pull in a document or something that you created. I like to use this if I'm having them work on something. I'll do a file upload of the PowerPoint that I'm referencing during the class. So that way they can pull up that PowerPoint, have it side by side, and kind of go back and forth to answer the questions from the PowerPoint. Some of these other ones, they're a little more advanced. Linear scale is your typical on a scale of 1 to 5. What would you rate it? Things like that. So for right now, I'm just going to leave them as paragraphs. And we'll just say, yep, the only one I really want them to answer for sure is the what is one important thing you learned in class today. The other two, I'll leave them there as optional. So if the students want to answer them, they can. They don't have to. So do you feel that you are prepared for today's lesson? Why or why not? And what would make today's lesson more effective? This is a good one to sometimes throw in to get feedback from the students and really, when you're doing your teaching, figure out what they find works for them and what you can adjust your lesson to improve on for the future so that way you can reach all the students. You'll also notice when I click on the question, off to the side here, there's a whole bunch of other buttons that pop up. So the first one's add a question. If I want to throw another question in there, I would click on that. It would add another question. You can import questions, which is nice if you have a whole bunch that you've already made up. You can import them, and so you don't have to retype it over and over and over again. You have the add title and description, and that kind of goes back to the top here. This is a title and description. So if you wanted to add for subsections, so like section 1, answer 3 of the questions, you could do that. There's the add an image, which will, for this question, add an actual picture. There's add a video, which you can then again add a link to a video that the students would watch. And the last one is add a section. This is good if you're breaking down your lesson into different parts. You can add sections so the students have to answer in the sections at a time. Generally, when we're in school, in the physical building, I would do the sections and do a Google form for a week at a time. And so I would have 4 or 5 sections depending on how many days of class we have that week. And each day it would be like section 1 would be day 1. And then I would have questions associated just with that day. And then you could break it down that way, do it by day, do it by topic. So if you want to have your essential question for the chapter, and each section has their own essential questions. You could break it down where you do your sections of your chapter in this, but the whole form is for that one chapter. So up at the top, you would have your essential question for the whole chapter. You would go through, the students would fill out as they complete each section, and then at the very end, you would have a question that goes back and answers that essential question. And so that's just a good way of getting them to go through each piece and answer the individual essential questions for each lesson, and then get that overall picture by being able to review all of the sections at once real quick. So you don't have to use this document as just a one and done. You can use this as a working document where you keep building on it and the students will keep answering things as they go along. So let's just say that I'm done with this. This is what I want to assign the kids for this week for when I do the lesson. So what I'm going to do is, once I'm done here, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to hit send. And what this will do is it will send it to whoever I want to have it filled out and completed by. So if I want to send it via email to everyone, I would leave it as the first option, and I would type in the addresses of who I wanted to go to, and it would send them an email. The other option is to do the link. And what this will do is it actually provides me with a web address that would take the students directly to the form and have them fill it out. I generally will click on the shorten URL just to make it a little bit smaller and easier. And then I will copy that and I'll paste it into a Google Classroom assignment. So when we get done the lesson, it'll have a little thing that says exit ticket. I post the link here. The students click on it, and before they can actually finish the lesson, they have to come here and fill out this form and submit it. For those that are really good with uh, your own websites that you're working with, there's also an embed HTML. So if you know HTML coding and you have your own website and you want to actually put the form in its full structure directly onto your website, you can come here and click on the uh, two little brackets here, and that gives you the embed code, and it's a really long code. So you would copy that code and paste it into the code of your website, and you can change the sizing depending on how big you want the box to be. Uh, but you can actually embed the form directly into your website. So anyone who visits your website will be able to see that form immediately. So this is what I personally will use because I have my own website. So the students that go to my website will see under each of the sections, whenever they click on a section, they'll see whatever the form is for that section right there, and they don't have to go to another website and fill out things. They can just fill it out directly on my website, and I get the results too. There's also the ability to share through your Facebook or your Twitter. Not quite uh, what we do in education, but if you're doing this as just a survey, if you want your students to do a survey question and you want them to quickly, especially now that we're doing from at-home schooling, if you want them to come up with a survey question and get responses from people, you can have them come in, create a Google form survey that they would then share through their social media, through either their Facebook or their Twitter. And that's going to give them a way to quickly disperse the survey to people and get responses back without having to physically go out and try and find people to do it for them. Um, so it's just a really nice option for when trying to collect survey results from people of all different backgrounds. It doesn't have to be the same group of people. You don't have to be surveying every kid in the classroom. You could survey all of your friends from your life, which may give you a whole bunch of different views out there. So those are all different things that you can do. If I want to make this a graded assignment, what I can do is come up here to settings, and right now it's under the general. And if you notice here, right now it restricts users in the Harrisburg School District and trusted organizations. So that means only people with the Harrisburg School District Google accounts will be able to fill this out. Um, if I want to make it that anyone can fill it out, such as I was saying, the survey questions, I would unclick that so that way anybody can take it. I would click the limit to one response. What that will do is it will force the person responding make sure they're signed into Google, which for our students is a good thing to make sure that they're using their Google accounts. And it limits them so they only get one opportunity to answer it. Now, if it's something that you want them to go back and after they submit it, maybe edit it a bit or be able to see their responses, you want to come down here and select edit after they submit. That allows them to go back after they submit it once. They can go back in and edit it again. If they realize they forgot something, they can go back and do that. If you want them to be able to see the summary and what they wrote down, you go ahead and click on that option as well. So presentation, this is when they're in. You can have it show a progress bar, which will actually mark how much of the form they've completed. The shuffle question order, this is a good one when you're doing a quiz, so that way not every student's quiz order will be the same. This kind of cuts down on the ability to cheat because your question order wouldn't be the same. And so it's not like I could text my friend and be like, hey, what did you get for number two? Because their number two question will be completely different. So it kind of deters cheating. And then you can also have this confirmation message at the end. So when they submit it, that pops up on their screen so they know that they've completed it. So a little thank you for filling it out. That's just something to do. What I like to do with this is in my confirmation message, thanks for filling it out, see you next time. be sure to submit under Google Classroom. Because if they haven't submitted in Google Classroom, it will still mark it in Google Classroom as being incomplete. So I want them to make sure that they go back in to Google Classroom and click on the Submit assignment. Now, what if I want to assign points to this? What if I want to turn this into a quiz? If I come over here to quizzes, what I can do is, it's turned off right now, but I can turn on, make this a quiz. And what that will do is we'll assign point values, and it will allow auto grading for multiple choice or checkboxes, or the drop down. So anything that Google can grade itself, it'll auto grade. Now the open responses, you'll have to go back in and grade yourself. If we were all on Chromebooks, we could lock it to Chromebooks. I don't want to do that because I know our students are not on Chromebooks. Release the grade. So if you're all multiple choice, I would choose the release grade immediately. So this gives the quick feedback directly to the student. Which ones did they get right? Which ones did they get wrong? So they know what they need to work on a little bit more. If I'm doing more of the open-ended problems where I have to go in and actually read their answers and assign points to it, I'm going to choose the later after manual review, and it's going to turn on the email collection. So that way, when I am done and I submit the score, it'll send an email to the student with their score. So if the setting for making sure it's only within the district is turned on, the students, when they sign in through their email account, it'll automatically collect it and put it there so it has that connection made already. And then you can choose down here, what do the respondents see? Do they see the missed questions? Do they see all the correct answers? Do they see the point values? If I'm giving the students the ability to take this quiz over a week, I'm going to deselect the correct answers option. This will keep somebody from going through, filling it all out, getting the answers, and then sending it to all their friends so that way their friends get all the right answers. I want them to make sure that they're actually trying to work. So I can have it show which questions they missed, and I can show them the point values for each question, but they won't see what the correct answers are until everyone has completed, and then I will go ahead and show them what the correct answers are through an email, or an in-class session we'll go over the correct answers. So that's just something to keep in mind. If you leave that clicked, they'll see all of the correct answers as they go through, so they won't really know. Or so they could actually end up sharing it with somebody else if they wanted to. So that's just something to keep in mind. And so there's some other options up here, like I can customize the theme. So if I want to change this picture, because I don't really want the hiking picture for my classroom, I can change what the header is. So I can choose an image, and there's a whole bunch of images that are already in there. I can upload my own image if I wanted to. So work and school, there's a whole bunch of options here that they've already done. So we'll just throw in the chemistry set. We'll insert it at the top there. So that puts it in there. Now the theme color changed because the image itself knows it, but we can change to whatever color we want it to be. If I want the background color to be a little bit darker, a little bit lighter, I can change that around. And that's all based upon whatever color we make our theme. I can change the font style. Basics, typically what we go with. If you want to be a little more formal, you would do the decorative or formal. That's the Times New Roman, really. Playful kind of gives it a little bit less of a schooly feel to it. So those are kind of some basic things that you can do with the theme. And while you're creating it, if you want to see what the students would see, because obviously they're not going to see the form this way where they can edit the questions and stuff. If you click on the little eye here, it says preview, it'll actually pull up what does it look like for the students. So you can see here, okay, this is how it's going to look, and it tells them anything that has that asterisk is required. So it's required to fill out your name, and it's required to fill out what's one important thing you learned in class today. The other two, I don't need to answer them, so it's okay if I leave them blank. Now, if I try to submit it without having it, because I have that required thing, it immediately pops up and says, hey, you didn't answer it. You need to answer these questions before you can submit it. So that's just a quick way, and make sure that it looks the way that you want it to look. And it's always good to preview your work before you assign it to the students. Now, let's say I wanted to reorganize these questions. That's real easy. Again, all I do is click on those 6 little dots, and I can just drag the questions up and down. And that'll flip the order of the questions, um, just to make sure that they go through and read the questions. Or if you feel like one's better than another and you want it to be answered more likely, you can drag it around however you want to. And so if I want to, let me just quickly do this. So I'm going to shorten the URL, copy it. If I want to assign this to my Google Classroom, so I'm going to go out of here. I'm going to get out of Google Forms. And I'm going to go into my classroom. And let's just use my mentoring as an example. So I'm going to throw in my mentoring. I'm going to go into my classwork, and I'm going to create a new assignment. And the title is going to be Exit Ticket. And so what I can do is in this instruction, I can then paste that website, and that will have the students, when they click on it, go there to that site. You can also attach forms here. So like if I wanted to add a link rather than in the instructions, if I wanted to say, please fill out the exit ticket, and then I come down here to add, I can add a link and paste the link here. And so then that also takes them directly to the Google Forms. If I wanted to create, and you can do this directly from Google Classroom as well, if I wanted to create a Google Forms, I can come under the create and go down to Google Forms and do it from there as well. So it kind of, depending on your feel, if you want to go in and work on it directly in Google Forms and then assign it to classes, you can do it this way, or you can come into the assignment in Google Classroom, click on the create, and create a Google Forms. And then once I assign it to the students, it will pop up as, depending on when I set the due date, it'll say exit ticket. The instructions will say, please fill out the exit ticket. When they click on it, it'll take them to that Google Forms site, specifically the one that I created here, the exit ticket. And because, as you notice on my screen here, when I hover over it, it says Google Forms sign in. It forces the students to make sure that they are signed into their Google account in order to collect the email addresses. So when it's all said and done, I can respond to them and it will go to their email address. If I deselected the collect forms, collect emails, it would just take them directly to the form. They would fill it out, and it would send me a notification that the student finished the form. And so that's just kind of a general overview of Google Forms, how we can use them, and how we can then embed them into our Google Classroom for the students to view.